All right, let's do this. Okay, welcome guys. Welcome to our Gen AI in FinTech meetups. I think this is the ninth virtual event tonight. Tonight's topic is about how Gen AI can or could empower your everyday life in personal finance. This is a personal financial management, a very interesting topic. Stick to my heart as well. I'll explain a bit why later on. Before we kick off, I would like to start the acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting here today. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and I also extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. My name is Kurt Jiang, and I'm the founder of this Gen AI in FinTech meetup, and also your host for this evening. I'm a digital banking product manager at a FinTech company called Sandstone Technology. We are a white-labeled digital banking SaaS technology provider for about more than 30 banking institutions globally. Personally, I'm super passionate about lean product management and also Gen AI technologies application in FinTech. Hence why I created this meetup not too long ago. I also provide a bit of an ad hoc lean product management consulting services to startups and also a bit of a product coaching to individuals. If you're interested in know more about my services, please feel free to check out my website, kurtyoung.com. I know this is a bit of a shameless plug. Gonna have to get it out of the way first. Bit of a quick housekeeping stuff rules before I introduce our lovely guest speaker tonight, Sherry. One is please feel free to raise your questions in the chat section, which we'll be addressing those after the presentation demo that Sherry is going to do. And also mute yourself if you can while either me or Sherry is presenting. And also the session is recorded as we mentioned earlier. It is just for future, social media sharing, and also for people who are not here, we can record it. They can watch it. All right, enough all the the not interesting stuff. Now the exciting part. It's my pleasure to introduce you our guest speaker here tonight, Sherry Jiang. Can you wave to everyone, Sherry? Yeah, just so people know what we're talking about. Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Hey. So Sherry is the co-founder and the CEO of Peek. That's Pweek. The website is peek.money, right, Sherry? If I remember that URL correctly. It's an AI-powered platform that helps you to track and grow your net worth, and Peak address the key challenges of managing complex financial portfolios, the personal financial portfolios, by helping individuals consolidate their accounts by APIs and also offering real-time insights to grow their wealth. On the side, Sherry also teaches a class called Code with AI, which helps individuals like myself, non-technical people, go from 0 to 1, building their own applications that's powered by AI, technology tools like Cursor, Vercel, and so forth. Prior to founding Peak, she worked at a big tech companies like Google, Amazon. At Google, she led the growth of Google Pay, which grew to about 100 million users in India in just 3 years. Very impressive stuff. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that we're going to dive into later on, Sherry. I want to hand it over the mic to you, so please take it away, Sherry.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for that introduction, Kurt, and also having me as, I believe, the first overseas presenter during this meetup. So I'm actually based out of Singapore normally, but super happy to, chat with you guys and hopefully share something that could be interesting for the session. I just did see something about Google Wallet. I'll take a look at that. I don't work on the team anymore, but I still have a few people back there that maybe potentially help you with your issue. So let me pull up a short presentation that I put together. Can everybody see this? Awesome. So I'll keep this one brief because I think Kurt already did an introduction, but I've spent a big part of my career working actually specifically in fintech, firstly among big tech companies like Google. I really fell in love with the space because I worked specifically on the India market and saw just how much opportunity was created by actually getting hundreds of millions of people that were previously not part of the formal economy operating in cash into the digital economy, which means that if you're a street merchant in Bangalore, right, and you have your transactions tracked, that information could then be used to help underwrite loans, right, that can help cover for working capital needs. So really fell in love with the problem. But then I also felt like I had an itch to do something a little bit riskier, which is why I left to start my own company. I actually done a few things before Peak. Was actually doing some projects within the crypto space for some time. Some of that didn't work out. So then, wanted to look at a space that actually spoke a little bit more meaningfully to my own experiences. So one thing that I've shared before is, when I went from working at Google to starting my own company, my own financial situation actually changed a lot. But I was trying to figure out what to do with 18 plus accounts that I was managing, right? I had a couple of crypto wallets. I had accounts for restricted stock units from both Amazon and from Google. I have a 401k, which is an American retirement account. It was just basically a mess to kind of figure out where like my liquid, non-liquid holdings were and actually do proper planning. So decided to actually solve my own problem, which is what led me to Peak. And then, of course, Kurt mentioned earlier, I also wanted to solve my own problem around the fact that I wanted to move faster on building products, but didn't want to bother my engineering team to do so. So I taught myself how to code with AI-assisted coding platforms, which I'll share a little bit later, and then started a community of people taking the course as well to empower themselves as well. So what I will be sharing today is I will first talk about just an intro to Peak, but how this is basically one of my bets on how GenAI specifically will help revolutionize personal finance management. Second part, I'll talk about how GenAI now can empower anyone to go from 0 to 1 with coding as well. And I want to make sure that the majority of this session is Q&A, so it's a little bit more interactive. So what is Peak? So Peak started because, again, I'm somebody who does not always like the administrative part of personal finances, the copy and pasting, the trying to trudge through some of the manual stuff, right? And it's become even more complicated to do all of this when our own financial stack has just kind of ballooned in terms of options, which is great because more choice means that people can find more places to invest according to their risk appetite or their own personality or their own goals. But the proliferation of all these different choices has led to a lot of complexity. Yet the tool stack that a lot of us use to manage our finances is still kind of living in spreadsheets, right? Excel, Google Sheets, etc. And so spreadsheets are great and everything. I mean, I actually have been using it for many, many years. I interned in banking before I decided to go into tech. They're great, but there's a lot of issues around just, error management, like things getting hard coded that you didn't realize was getting hard coded, formulas that might be complex. If you don't come from a finance background, I come from a finance background, and sometimes doing things like IRR calculations is maybe not always the most straightforward to kind of pull together. So again, a lot of this can be quite intimidating for the everyday person who just wants to know, do I have enough money for a down payment for this kind of house in the future? So even after you kind of do all the assemblance of all your information and consolidation in one place, getting to the steps of figuring out how to combine those pieces of information together to help you answer the key questions you want to have is also a challenge, right? So people will ask, how can I afford to buy the house that I want, right? Without putting myself in a cash flow position that I don't want to be in, right? Or number two is people have been working in certain roles for 15 years and they're like, can I go off on my own and start my own business? What kind of impact can that have? And not just on myself, but maybe my family with 2 kids, right? So that's another question that comes up that is complex, where there's multiple factors involved. And so this is the mission behind why we decided to build Peak, right? It's becoming more complex to manage the admin part, but also in general, making these financial decisions are high stakes and complex in nature. So we want to build a platform that simplifies this, right? So one part of what we do with Peak is we utilize things like APIs to consolidate and connect accounts into one place to give you that like visualization, real time, very simply. But we also utilize AI insights to help you get to the point of a decision much quicker than you would have had to do in the past, navigating like different tools, different websites, or maybe talking to your friends who may or may not have the maybe the best know-how on a specific issue. You were kind of cobbling things together there in the past to make a decision. So in terms of the features, right, what we firstly do is connect accounts into one place. We also then help you pinpoint exactly what is happening with your portfolio's performance as well. Like, one thing that, I probably obsess over more than for my own good is, hey, the Fed rates in the US came down this much. Like, how did that affect my portfolio, right? But we're able to actually quantify that much more easily than you having to look at it across different accounts. And then thirdly is we use AI to basically transform this complex data set into actionable insights. Now, this is a lot of talk, so what I'm actually going to do is do a live demo of the product itself, so you can actually see how it's working in action. So I'm going to share a different tab. So this is Peak that's live. And actually, if you want to check it out today in the beta, you can actually sign up for an account at app.peek.money and check it out. But I'll kind of walk through this demo account, right? So typically how some people use Peak is they maybe have one habitual like habit of checking it once in a month to make sure like they're tracking against their goals, but they might also specifically have like a savings goal or something that they're using the tool for to answer a question. So how the first part would work in terms of workflow is if you wanted to, let's say, update because, hey, you started and open a new account in ComSec, which some of you guys might have, you can actually add you can add in your ComSec account directly through a partner that we have called SnapTrade. So instead of having to manually copy and paste your holdings, like your buy sell price, where the stock price is today, you can actually pull in all of that in just one go, which can take maybe 30 seconds to maybe a few minutes to actually get that all in there, and it gets updated automatically. So that's usually part of the process that people have to update their finances every single month. They're like, okay, I created a new account. I want to make sure all it gets ported in, and maybe I want to click around to see how things are doing. Okay, the month of October and September, mid-September to October, it's been doing relatively okay, right? I think beginning of September was much worse. But I just want to see, okay, how are things tracking? Like, am I following and tracking against my expectations, and where do my stocks actually how do they actually contribute to those numbers, right, in detail? Not everybody looks at this all the time, but at least we do give you that level of detail in case you do want a deep dive. We also have, as part of the monthly check, a dashboard page, which has a couple of different views that you can use to figure out, like, do you have any risks that you might not be maybe entirely aware of in your portfolio. So some of these widgets are actually powered by GenAI right now. We use Claude 3.5 Sonnet model behind the hood to actually generate this. So this is one example of a type of risk that people have, which is, hey, you have too much of maybe like a single stock. I think in this portfolio, it might be somewhat okay. It's S&P 500 concentration is more like a geographical one than like a single stock one. But for some people, that actually could be the case that they have, let's say, 15% in Microsoft stock because they used to work there, right? That's considerably high for I would say like an individual stock holding. Just to show you how this works, I just reran this this widget to do the analysis. So this is actually running through a prompt that we have today that's powered by Claude to do this analysis. Maybe give it a second to work. It's taking slightly longer than usual. Great. Okay, now that looks here. So yeah, this is this is the refreshed concentration analysis. So, I mean, again, in this particular case, it's actually quite diversified in this demo account, but it can visually show you where you might have, more holdings in one place than you might want. So yeah, that's how somebody might go through a monthly review with Peak, just to see if there's, everything's in check. There's not any risks that I'm not aware of or portfolios that haven't been invested. Specific use cases that people might have are, again, if they have certain maybe accounts that are tied to certain savings plans. You can actually use Peak to actually add some tags here. So let's just say, I want all this to be, tagged to, you know, a house I want to buy in 10 years, right? Although I usually wouldn't do that for public equities, but I'll just do it for this demo's sake, right? So future house. So you can actually utilize something like tags to then tag certain investments for like a goal. Yeah, so that's the basic demo of Peak. I'll stop here and maybe take some questions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we do have some questions. I think Keith asked a question. Does Peak link with bank account? This is the open banking, I guess,
yeah.
sort of a question we were talking about before. Do you want to address that one first?
Yeah, it links with some bank accounts, but not all bank accounts yet. So we actually don't have Australian bank accounts yet. It's something that's on top of our minds. We do have
Yeah.
some for Singapore, and then we have it for the US right now. So we have to build out each integration case by case.
Yeah, I don't know. You know how, Sherry, because I work in the open banking space here, right? So in open banking in Australia, we have some you can call, the service providers. I don't know, like Ada Tree. What's the other ones called? Was a uh, U- Utley. I can't remember the
Yodlee,
exact. So there's
yes, yeah.
yeah. So there are about two or three. I guess you can say like fairly popular service providers that they can like once you integrate with those guys, you can basically get access to probably I don't know tens or hundreds of different banks in Australia in terms of their bank account details. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we got some more questions. Actually, the next question is from me. I think when you were showing the Gen AI powered that kind of a risk assessments, right? So I was
Yeah.
just curious, like, was that risk management model, was that created by Gen AI, or did your team sort of give some sort of a prompt, having
Yeah.
some sort of pre-made risk model and get the Gen AI to refine it or something? Yeah.
Yeah, we actually prompted it. So
Mm.
we fed the math to the model, and then what the model then does is will pull things together. Basically, takes the information from the user's portfolio, uh, like utilizes a tool to do the math. It's actually not doing the math itself, and then it
Mm.
produces the response, right? So all that text, the rationale, that's actually that's the part that's created by Gen AI.
Got it. Cool. One more question from me. I was going in sequence because that looks really like Peak is in Notion. What was that created in like using Notion sort of site sort of stuff? Because it seems like it's in Notion or something. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Oh, so it's not created in Notion. Like this is built with Next. Sorry, it's built with React. It's
Yeah.
but I'd say we borrow inspiration from Notion just because it's I like the way that it's organized for productivity in general. So we do borrow
Mm,
some of the, I would say, design paradigms from Notion, but it's not built in Notion. Yeah,
got
something
it.
separate.
Like because I
Yeah.
use Notion regularly. I was like, wait, it looks a bit similar to Notion to me.
Yeah. I'm a regular Notion user as well.
Yeah, I mean it's actually a very good compliment because Notion is so, from a user experience perspective, it's really, yeah, there's no comparison. So I think you guys done a really good job on that front. I think there's one more question here. How secure or what security measure? Actually, that's an important question
Yeah.
to take, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we store everything with encryption, standard encryption for your data. So on the back end, we have everything on AWS, which is actually pretty industry standard for a lot of players within finance as well. So the encryption is both, it's getting a bit of detail, but it's in rest and in transit, which means that the data stays put or moves around. You cannot actually see what is happening to a specific user because all of it is scrambled.
Nice. All right. I think that's all the I mean, feel free to unmute yourself. Actually, I think Steph asked a question earlier, but that wasn't to do with this one. But it's to do with does Google use transaction data? I think that's
Oh,
one where initially talking about your Google experience,
Yeah,
you was asking that at the time. Yeah.
I just had a question like how big is the team on Peak? Like and how long has it
yeah,
So
yeah. We're 6 people. We have been in beta in the market for 6 months, so still early stage.
good
been?
stuff.
Is that also like Android, iOS, or just a web?
Not currently, so it's just a web app right now. We do plan on having a mobile strategy, but we're trying to decide between having like a progressive web app or have it be a like a Android and iOS app, which um it would include another layer that we would have to execute on. But that's something that we're thinking about for sure.
Did you raise funding as well, or is it like purely angel invested by yourself and other people?
Yeah, so it is invested by actually previous investors on the cap table from my previous company. So it's not a bootstrap startup, but we did raise some money a couple of years ago.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. I think that might also address Keith's question around, are you bootstrapping business income model? I mean
Yeah,
that's from a funding perspective. On the business income model, is that something you can share or is
yeah, I can share. It's public information. We're a subscription business. We charge $10 a month or $100 a year. The reason why we chose a subscription model is because we decided not to sell your data as the revenue model or promote as a marketing channel, which is, I would say, sometimes the model that you would see for some of the tracker products, right? Which is fine. But some of them will do like upsell to advisory, or they have partnerships with certain institutions that sell their products through the platform. Part of our product pillar is that we want to give you as unbiased information as possible. So by removing any incentive, right, that we get paid by an institution to push a specific product, you can feel like the data is coming to you in a way that can really help you make the most unbiased decision, right? So that's why, again, we have to monetize somewhere. So we do it by subscription from the actual consumers of the product.
got it? Cool. I think Steph
Awesome.
got one more question. Where do you find talent? I mean that's a constant challenge for all the startups, right?
Yeah.
Do you-
Yeah. So yeah, I'm happy to share. So I met my co-founder through an accelerator program based in Singapore. So it's kind of great because it's like everybody quit their jobs already, and so you don't have any competing priorities. You're like, all right, we have nothing else to lose. Like we just have to make this work. It's not Y Combinator. It's called Entrepreneur First. So they're like a pre-product, pre-team accelerator. YC usually you apply with the team, and even if it's early stage, right? So that's how I met my co-founder. And then my CTO was again mutual connection. He actually used to work for the tech arm of the Singapore government. So I feel very safe that he's actually made sure to make sure all of Singapore's consumers' data is properly protected. So if he does that for us, I think he does a good job as well. So yeah, it's a lot of people that we met through mutual connections, etc. But we keep our team really small, so I don't have to spend a lot of my time hiring. I just try to like upskill and increase productivity of who we have currently on the team.
Cool. Wow. There's a lot of questions coming from Steph. Marketing side. Oh, I think
Yeah,
Steph is trying to understand how she runs the entire business.
yeah. I'm happy
Good.
to if this is helpful for people. So yeah, I can't speak for like when we're in a more scale up mode, how that's going to work, but for at least the initial beta, our marketing has been entirely, I would say, organic and LinkedIn personal branding content driven. So essentially what happened was before we even built Peak as a product, I was like the biggest risk is market validation. So we created some Figma mock-ups of what the product could look like. I posted it on LinkedIn and basically like put a wait list to sign up to see if there's demand. And luckily there was demand, which is why we actually ended up building the product. So it's been this feedback loop constantly on my LinkedIn where I kind of just journal our like journey as a company, right? I share the decisions that we make, why we make them, how users use our product, how I use my own product, right, as a user. And that's been actually pretty much 99% of our like marketing so far, right? So it's gotten us to like 2,000 people on the wait list on the product. But as for how we get to like 10,000 or 100,000 users, I think there'll be a lot more that we'll have to expand beyond what I'm doing personally on my LinkedIn. But that's where at least we started.
That's awesome. Hey, just on that topic, right? I mean, this is me putting my product manager hat on. I can't help to ask, just me, like
Yeah, go
curious.
ahead.
Just, I mean, personal financial management applications been out there in the fintech industry for
Yeah,
probably, like a lot of years or even
so long,
decades,
right?
right?
Yeah,
But there has been some. It's quite controversial in terms of whether from an FI perspective or even from an end customer
yeah,
perspective, in terms of the usefulness or effectiveness.
yep.
How do you see peak? You can call differentiating from what the
Yeah,
traditional ones market, or even why do you think the traditional ones, the PFM sort of tools, whatever, hasn't been as like sort of well adopted as we
yeah,
wish them to be? How yeah, what's your insights around there? Yeah.
yeah. I think it's two things, right? I think number one is that it might feel funny to this group because I would say that probably most people here are like probably more financially savvy than most, but uh, regular people investing is kind of a new phenomenon, right? A lot of people got more into it because of Robinhood in the US or, other
Mm,
trading platforms, and maybe even more during COVID, right? Because we had a lot of time to sit at home to invest. So I still have to sometimes remind myself that people like finding a way to invest their money outside of like putting it into a fixed deposit account or buying property is still actually relatively new, especially if you look at it from like a broad user base perspective. So of course, the first generation of products that did really well focus more on getting people to take the action of investing, right? So these platforms help you buy and sell Apple stock or whatever. I think people are now just starting to get a little bit smarter and say, okay, I might have made some, decisions that were maybe not the best, right? I shouldn't put, 30% of everything in NVIDIA, right? Even though that's hype. They're now starting to think, okay, what's next? Like, how do I become smarter and look across everything and think, okay, um, what's a strategy for it, right? Like, how does my decision to buy or sell Apple or buy or sell this ETF lead up to my what I want for how money works for me in my life? So I think that we're starting to get to that stage. I wouldn't say that's 100% just yet, but certainly a lot more than I say the consumer mentality around holistic financial management like 10 years ago, where it was again more expense management, savings, and all of that, right? So I think that's one part of it is just the market kind of has to become more financially literate over time and ask these questions and demand solutions that help them ask these questions. I think the second one is that the technology has been a big, well, it has gotten a lot better, but the fact that it wasn't in its state of maturation was a hindrance. So I'll talk about two of them, right? I think number one is actually the whole API / open banking stack, right? A lot of these things are so hard to build if you still have manual entry, if you're not able to actually connect to banks or connect to crypto wallets or connect to brokerages. If people are effectively doing the same thing every single month, copy and pasting into your
mm,
prettier looking app with a dashboard, they're not going to really see that as like a 10x experience, right? It's not that much better. So I think that with now Plaid, Snaptrade, Flanks, like there's a lot of new players that have cropped up, these aggregators. Like they've made our jobs a lot easier, to be honest, right? We connect to thousands of brokerages around the world. I certainly do not think we could have done that 7, 8 years ago, right? But we're lucky that those guys had a crack at that middle layer of I would say integrations to allow us to kind of speed run the process around getting all the APIs in place. The second barrier that I'll talk about that I think is now being enabled with where tech is today is actually the AI part, because people, what we learned from even talking to our users is that like it's a lot of effort to then think, okay, I have all this data in one place. Like, what the hell do I do with it, right? And connecting the data into insight, into action, right, is a
mm,
step that I think a lot of the trackers don't really have. They end up looking a little bit like dashboards that maybe somebody who's like a experienced trader or someone who's from the industry will know what to do with that information, but many more people need to be stepped through, like cognitively, through like, okay, Google is 20% of my portfolio. Okay, is that good or bad? And how good or bad is it? Okay, okay, it may be good or bad is measured by variance, and I don't want to be like, what's the most that can I lose a year when I have 20% Google? Okay, now that I know I want to change from this mix of Google, like what do I do with that money after I sell, right? So there's a lot of steps, right? And I think Gen AI is starting to get to a place where it can actually maybe replace the like human level of intelligence that used to be involved in those conversations to now a kind of machine generated conversation to help someone step through those insights into ultimately some like a decision that somebody makes. I know that was a bit long-winded, but I do think that like this is a good time than ever before to like work on something like this.
That's awesome. I think Steph got one more question here. Do you have a tool for customer feedback like Hotjar survey in your app, like in, for example, in Peak?
Yeah.
Because I used the stuff before as well. Do you
Yeah.
embed the
So
feedback app?
yeah, so we don't use Hotjar, but there's a tool we really like called Intercom. They give you like an amazing tool set to basically like layer on top like tool tips, communication surveys on top of your actual app. So we do surveys for people when they decide to unsubscribe from us because we're like, okay, we need to know why you leave. We also do like a general NPS survey as well when somebody hits 1 month of subscribing and using the platform. So yeah, certainly we do a lot of that. And to be honest, I took an approach with building Peak that is maybe a little unconventional, but actually for our first few hundred beta testers, I just have their phone numbers on WhatsApp. So then they can like text me kind of in situation whenever they're like thinking any type of way about their finances or using Peak. So we find that like actually having that informal communication channel is like so insights rich as a founder.
Wow.
So I don't just use like formal tools. Like I have I mean, they start to talk to me like I'm their friend in a way. So I get to know like what they're really thinking.
That's powerful. Actually, as a PM, we really value feedback. That kind of a direct feedback that is powerful. That's amazing. Hey, just one more question around, me, like I
Sure.
think I mentioned to you before, I actually similar to you, I came from a financial like investment background as well. I worked in ComSec about 8 or 9 years before I went into tech. So from my ComSec experience, what I found, a lot of customers, I think one big problem in investment that need to be addressed is more around financial education. So obviously there's the
Yeah.
experienced traders and there's inexperienced. And if you look at the world, we're moving towards more digital. Younger people, less and less of them, they're more financially literate, right? So they basically doesn't either have those financial literacy or maybe
Yeah.
doesn't have the desire to really understand the complexity of financial investment. So from that perspective, do you guys currently already have something, or do you guys think this is something your application wanted to address in the
Yeah.
near future? Is that something?
Yeah, so when I think about like, so I certainly agree, right? And I'm somebody who again I grew up not taking any like personal financial literacy classes growing up. That was not a thing in school at all. And I was lucky enough to have a mother who invests very frequently, so I learned from her. But for most people, you don't get that growing up, right? So it is really important to like help people not only know where they can invest and what to invest in, but like why they do it and how they should think about it critically, right? But I see where I see Peak fitting in is less so like I would say financial literacy course, right? It's not like we're creating like videos that you watch and we have a formalized curriculum. I think of it as more like in situation behavioral management, right? It's more like if you are, it's like the difference between reading about like a workout or like a diet a certain way from a book versus like having a coach that or a nutritionist that like you work with on a week by week, day by day basis, who's like, hey, like I noticed that or I'm like, I noticed that my energy levels are not as great today, like is there something that I ate that I can evaluate to see if that's creating that, or like, oh, I want to build more muscle mass in this area that I haven't really worked on, how do we design a program to do so? I think of Peak as more like behavioral management from that perspective than it is like a formalized curriculum or course. And to me, I think it's also more powerful because you don't just take knowledge and information, it just kind of sits there, because I think a lot of people know that conceptually managing your money is important to some degree, but like how you actually do it, how you learn, how you like, you know, read from the market what you're doing and then react and be like, okay, this is what, how, why does the Fed's meeting matter to me, right? Like that
Yeah,
kind of level of connection, I think, is what's missing a lot of times when it comes to education. So we kind of sit more on that like behavioral management side.
that's awesome. Awesome. I think one of the companies in Australia, like a fintech company, I don't know if you heard of Simply Wall Street.
I
So they
love
have
Simply Wall Street.
Yeah, so they
I
have
love it.
an
I'm a
amazing.
user.
So even while I was in ComSec, right, I was actually thinking at the time why there hasn't, been a application or a solution to address that. As much as ComSec and many other, online brokerage firms, they're trying to address it. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of really that complexity in terms of the technical jargons and everything, right? So I think what Simply Wall Street done really, really well, this is coming back to my point earlier around the financial education. I agree with you. It's actually not just about those really courses and stuff. It's just
Yeah.
really breaking down the language, making
Yeah.
something people can understand, right? If you do that and make it a really relevant to their personal situation, what they want to know, you can translate it in the kind of language they can understand. You see, like that. That's why Simply Wall Street is very successful. So they have amazing success right now over
Yeah.
the because I've been following them for the last probably 5 to 8
Yeah.
years. They have done an amazing job. Yeah, just to
Yeah.
yeah. Mm.
I love Simply Wall Street. Actually, I send some of the stuff that I'm a paying customer. I send some of the
Think
stuff
about
that is in Simply Wall Street to my team all the time. But the thing I love about them, and something that we try to emulate with Peak as well, is that they're able to present things in such a simple and intuitive way without losing the depth of the insights, right? Like they don't like dumb it down in a way that like you get like surface level understanding, but they help you digest and process the information despite how deep it might be, right? And you can kind of choose how deeply you also want to engage. Like, do you really want to go down to the level of price to earnings ratio comparisons and industry benchmarks? Like, you don't have to, but they iterate you through the process where like you're not overwhelmed with information. But I really love the product. I borrow a lot of inspiration from them. I think they do quite a good job.
That's amazing. That sounds like you're definitely on the right track because I think
Yeah.
you're doing a great job. I mean, their growth numbers, everything's actually backing them up as well. So I think if you guys actually borrowing their inspiration, you're definitely on the right track. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think there's still a lot of more questions, but I think right now let's shift the topic to the personal side. We were talking about the coding. You were talking about
Yeah.
sort of the courses. Maybe do you want to touch on?
Yeah.
Do you have some stuff you want to share on this? This slides.
Yeah. Let's do that. I mean, I'll skip it for now. It's okay. I do have a demo of like how our AI feature works in the chat, but I can leave
Sure.
that maybe for later. So let me just iterate through this stuff. If anyone's curious about how agentic models work and how we use it in the product, I'm certainly happy to cover that. But in the interest of time, I'll move on to the more personal part of what I do. Uh, so I basically came across this problem a couple of months ago where I'm somebody, again, I'm like, I want to get a reaction back from the market as quick as possible, right? Like I think I think of a, founders basically need to make have as many shots at understanding something and reducing the costs of basically running a test. So I'll ask my team, like, hey, can we build a fire calculator in the app to see if people want to use that as a goal tracker? Can we build like this rent or buy decision? Because a lot of people think about buying property as one of the biggest financial decisions they have to make. And my team, rightly so, will say, hey, we can probably do it in like 2-3 months because we have all this other stuff that we have to do on the core app. So I was like, you know what, with all of the AI assisted coding products out there now, like V0 Dev or Cursor, and even Claude actually does a pretty good job with their artifacts feature. I was like,
Yeah,
can
it's super good. It's super good.
amazing, amazing. If anyone hasn't tried it, it will blow your mind the first time you use it. It blew my mind the first time I used it.
Yeah.
I wish it still did, but it's still very, very cool. But there's a lot.
Funny you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Actually, I converted from a paying customer for ChatGPT to Claude just for that one reason. So now I'm
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
paying Tesla for that one reason only.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
it's pretty amazing. Yeah, so basically, yeah, oh, when you have which reason to convert, Claude is
Uh,
actually much better at coding than GPT, and it has access to like more, I'd say, common libraries that developers use. GPT is okay for coding, but it's like there's some scores you can look at to compare the models against each other, and unanimously I think Claude has come up as better for coding than for GPT. Yes, most people do use Claude for coding. So yeah, that's basically like how I got started. And to be honest, like I wasn't somebody who thought I could do this. I was like, yeah, I've never been, I've been in product, right? But I haven't actually really done much coding myself. But what was a really big light bulb moment for me was I started to work on some apps myself, basically some of these like personal finance mini apps, right? If you may. And I was actually able to build something that was functional like within a weekend, just through like using Cursor and a lot of like, again, AI assisted debugging because I'm, trying to learn as I'm building. But I was actually able to like do that, within just a couple of hours. And so, the other thing that I wanted to show is like how, pretty much anybody can kind of get started with this. So one thing that I did recently as just a fun exercise is I actually cloned Google Finance. And there's actually a very simple way to do so. Instead of playing this video, what I was thinking is I can just show you guys how that works live. And I think it will work, but sometimes the internet is going to be weird, but I will just show you. So let me try to switch over to presenting a window. Yes, hopefully the demo costs are there. Okay, so I'm gonna pull up Google Finance just here. All right, so probably most people have seen something like a portfolio tracker plus news plus all of this before. So what I use in the first part of my AI coding stack is this tool called v0.dev. This is created by Vercel. This is actually, I would say, almost like a Claude artifacts, but better, I would say, for UI UX. But Claude is reasoning wise a lot smarter. So I would use Claude to write like PRDs, product requirement docs, but I probably wouldn't use Vercel for this. But what you can do is things like this. So you can essentially copy and paste this app, right? Like I'm just cloning it. I'm not really doing anything special. I'm just copying this, and I'm just gonna go into V0 and say, I am trying to create, spelling, a clone of Google Finance, a portfolio tracker. I have a screenshot of what the first part of I'm going to zoom in so people can see the landing page looks like. Can you help me create a first draft of the UI? So I'm just going to paste this in here and then ship it. All right, let's see what it cooks. Thinking. Yeah, so it's actually writing code real time right now. So for those who are maybe not as familiar with different languages, so V0 will often use React, which is a pretty common like library for front-end applications, modern front-end applications. So all this is being generated by AI, by the way. I didn't do anything. I just typed in the prompt and threw in the screenshot. And there you go. Yeah. So again, there's obviously some differences, like, there's some bars that are missing. It says finance, right? There's probably a logo that's supposed to be there. So the formatting is a little off, but it's a start, right? And you can actually keep talking to it, say, can you make the background pink instead, right? And it will go ahead and make those changes.
Do you know like are they using their own large language model, or is there a large language model behind this one, or wait?
Yeah, so there's one that's behind. Oh, yeah, it's pink. Yeah, there's one that's actually behind it. Um, so yeah, that's Vercel also has a bunch of other tools that allows you to work between the different models as well, because they might be useful for, different use cases. So they have their own kind of logic that they have on top of the other models to kind of produce like slightly better UI UX generation experiences. So you could actually do this within Claude artifacts, and you can do a comparison if you want to. But generally speaking, my experience is that the results look like are a little bit easier to. It's easier to get good results using V0.
Got it. Steph made a comment, a developer's toast. Well, I mean, funny you mentioned that, Steph, right? I like, like after the whole GenAI stuff, I've been talking to my dev friends and, the techie friends a lot. Funny thing is, I mean, as much as we think they are, but in reality, I think the senior devs, like the tech leads, and I think it's more the junior ones. I think they are the ones they're going to be in some trouble. But the senior ones, the tech leads, they're actually going to be in more demand. I feel like, because
Yeah,
when you're checking the code, or for example, the code that actually this stuff might write might not be very clean code or something. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I think for us non-techies, I'm not going to be able to clean this code, but you might need those more senior devs to
yeah,
help, I guess, maybe. Yeah.
yeah. So there's a tweet that somebody wrote that I thought was actually quite insightful. They said that so they're a developer, right? And they started to use like AI assisted coding, and they're like, wow, I realized 80% of my skills are now useless, but I can now be 10x better at the 20% that is left, right? Which is a
Exactly.
lot more like higher level thinking. So I think it's just like up leveling, right? So again, like if all you were doing before was like kind of very basic, like pixel pushing, yeah, like I can do that now, right? I'm not generating any, I'm not doing any of this coding myself, right? But AI is able to like understand, okay, like this is how you create these different headers and buttons, etc. So if that's all you were doing before, then yeah, like you might need to rethink like what your, you know, differentiated skill is in the market. But I think it's plenty of opportunity for people to up level and upskill themselves and focus on the 20% that's still left that is, very, very impactful. Yeah.
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think the other question Steph asked is that's probably a like very good question. So if that's really the case, then how do junior people, if they want to get into coding and stuff, do they just learn Gen AI, or I don't know if that's
I mean,
there's solutions for that yet, but
maybe push yourself to be like at least like on the technical work side as good as a senior dev on day one. I mean, I feel like that's got to be it, right? I mean, obviously you don't have the human relationship and management skills maybe when you're like new to a job, but if AI is allowing you to like move a lot faster on kind of the basic stuff, then I would say that the expectation of what a junior does changes, right? That's again my 2 cents or how I kind of see it. And if I mean, in our own company, our devs are actually a little bit more senior, so it's not something we've experienced ourselves. But I would fully expect somebody who is a junior dev, if they wanted to come work at our company, I would actually have my expectation of what they do would be, hey, here's all these tools that make what some of the other things more productive. I expect you to have higher level thinking kind of
yeah.
first day out the gate.
And also probably just like one more comment from my side in
Yeah,
terms of the career change, right? I feel like in the next probably 5 to 10 years, because of all this Gen AI, this technology change, the impact and everything, not just to developers, but to PMs, to many other
yeah,
designers or other people in other areas, right? I think the actual job title itself is no longer they're going to be that
yeah,
important. It's actually
yeah,
more about the roles and responsibilities, right? And that's going to
hmm,
change like a lot.
yeah,
So I think really not focus too much on the title, on the existing responsibilities. Really focus about, like in the near future, probably in the next 5 to 10 years, what are the more high in demand skills and that sort of stuff. If you have those, it doesn't matter you call yourself a developer, a PM, or
yeah,
whatever, right? It's
yeah,
still it's more about getting shit done. If you can get shit done, that's
yeah.
that's all that
I
matters. So
I completely agree with you. And a lot of designers, I again, like a lot of the stuff that you do here, right? This back and forth is what you used to have to kind of do in Figma. But now, like if you're a designer, you
That's
can
good.
actually like have first level code, right? That you can pass to somebody who's a real engineer maybe later, but you can actually get that first step yourself. And so are you just are you a true designer, or are you like kind of doing some basic web development as well? So I think that what's more important is understanding like how you kind of uniquely bring skills to the table and how those combine and collaborate with other people versus worrying like about specific scopes of jobs.
Couldn't agree more. Sorry to be
It's
distracted with
okay.
railing your conversation. Let's head back to your main
Yeah,
course.
all good. So I already showed this. Let me just move on. Sorry. I think I need to unpresent this. Let's see, stop sharing and then share a tab. Okay, perfect. Um, so I won't play this video demo anymore because I did it live and thank God it worked. So yeah, as a result of this, I actually started to post my own coding learning journey on LinkedIn as well, right? And I would just post demos of like, you know, I posted one recently of a tool I built, which uses open AI, uses Claude to roast your investment portfolio in like a comedic tone, right? So I thought it was pretty funny. So I'll post that stuff, and then people were reaching out like, "Hey, how did you go from like a non-dev to creating these apps like fairly quickly? Do you have a class for this? Do you have materials? Like, can we meet for coffee?" And when I got like 40 of these kind of messages, I was like, I think there's some demand for this space. And so I started actually running these like workshops with a co-facilitator, and we're doing this freelance on the side. Like we're both founders, but we are like, maybe there's some community element here that really is quite a bit more important than just the own companies that we build. And it's been super fun. We've done 2 batches of in-person, super high touch classes. We do one-on-one debugging with people if they run into issues. And it's really good to say that everybody shipped something, right? So everyone was actually able to build something in 48 hours over a weekend course. And some people are still building, right? They're either like using the skills that they learn to take a stab at their own company's products. Some others have set up a website for their consulting businesses that they found. We're taking like months to find like a freelancer to build the website. And then they're like, screw it, I'm just going to learn to build it myself. And they were able to do it. So yeah, we're pretty happy to see like the kind of outputs that people have been able to create. And here's like one student example I just wanted to share is this person named Chloe. She is somebody who does a lot of content creation for personal finance. And she was able to build this financial freedom calculator, very similar to what I did. I honestly think hers looks a lot better than what I did firstly. But she was able to create this in 4 hours, right? Just like doing it with AI assisted coding.
Wow, that's
So
nice.
yeah, non-technical folks can like code easier than ever before. And I always say this, if you can think and speak clear, structured English, you can code, right? Can you identify how to navigate between different pages? Can you identify like how to explain what a card component should look like for an app? You can then code it, right? As long as you can think through those steps. Yeah, I'll stop there. I know we're kind of towards the end of the presentation and meetup time, but yeah, I'm
Yeah,
happy to.
for sure. Feel free, guys, to unmute yourself if you want to ask questions directly to Sherry. I think I can see there's a question from Steph about your course. It seems like there's some interest, like how much and is it using Claude? I mean, do you want to go a bit
Yeah,
more specific?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So the the course, so the first time we did the course, we actually did it as a pay as you wish model, because we're like, we don't know how much people want to pay for this. And we're like, you guys are our guinea pigs. So like, if we royally screw up and you guys don't learn anything and think it's a complete waste of time, it's okay. But we ended up seeing that people generally paid about 250, so $200 to $300, right? Again, it was all voluntary. You didn't have to pay if you didn't want to. So then by the second course, we decided to like actually just put a price tag on it. And so it's $250 Sing dollars, which is I think almost exactly the same as Aussie dollars.
Similar. Mm,
Yeah. So it's like a weekend class, like 3 to 4 hours on each day.
Got it. Cool. And that's more like in person, face to face sort of a project, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we did the first two in person. We are thinking of introducing an online version. The reason why we didn't do an online version first is because like I care so much about like course outcomes, right? And a lot of like people that put on online courses, like, you know, again, it feels a little bit like, okay, there's a lot of hype around AI. You pay for the course and then you're like, like I paid 100, 200 bucks, but like it's not that useful. I already paid the money, whatever. And then they don't end up doing anything with it. So we didn't really want that to happen. We're like, what does it really take for like
Yeah.
it to be completely foolproof that everyone has to be able to ship something, and it had to be in person to understand like where do people get lost in command lines? Like what folder management on within like Cursor became one of the toughest things for people to kind of wrap their heads around, because it's not intuitive
Yeah.
for somebody who's not technical. So we caught those issues, right? So it's kind of the similar way that I approach, like I would say, my other business with Peak, is that I do a lot of the shit that doesn't scale, which is like just sit there and really understand where people are getting stuck in the process of learning, and then until we like are able to crack a formula on how that works, like we won't do an online version just yet, but once
Yeah.
we have a better understanding, then we can productize it and maybe have it be a little bit more accessible for people outside of Singapore.
Yeah, I like that. Finding the product market fit before you scale, right? So that's how we
Yeah.
normally do. We got a few more questions. I think more around this whole tool side of things. So I think both Tom and Moksh, I think I hope I pronounced your name right. So they were asking, what else tools other than the V0 you mentioned earlier? Any other recommendation on the full
Yeah.
stack development or front end?
Yeah. Sure. Maybe I'll like show you. So I definitely recommend Cursor for like deploying like a full app. So I mean, I can show you what Cursor looks like. I'm just gonna pull up an entire screen. Um, can you see this? So
Yep.
Cursor is a tool that, again, this is used by like newbie coders like me, as well as like 10, 20-year senior dev people, right? They're also using the same thing. But you can use like different kind of chat interfaces to talk to AI to do certain things. So this app is done in Next.js, and right now this tool that I'm in is called Composer, which is a AI that allows you to orchestrate across numerous files. So I can do something similar to say, can I make this app pink? And let me see if I can. Yeah, and then it will start generating. So it's kind of similar to what you saw with V0, but what you do with Cursor is you can actually push this code to essentially production, or to deploy it into something that could be viewable by other people. So this is one tool that I'm just going to cancel it for now, but this is one tool that I recommend. If you wanted to do any sort of backend implementation, the other tool I suggest is actually two. You can use Postgres and Superbase. So what Postgres allows you to do is use natural language to basically design what a schema can look like for your product. Why are you making me sign in? So the let me see if I can just quickly get in and show this. Oi, okay. Don't know if my password is going to show. Anyways, maybe I won't do that for now. But
That's
basically, what Postgres will do is give you a diagram of what your schema can look like. So in the case of Google Finance, as an example, you might have a user table, which is like account login information, first and last name, email, things like that. But then the user will have portfolio, right? So there's maybe another table that has information around what you're holding in your portfolio. So stock name, how much you have of it, the market value, the cost basis, etc. So that's another table. So when you're envisioning like how you build a backend database for your product, like this actually helps you kind of step through that process and then create the SQL code that you would need to use to be able to hold and store that data. And then Superbase is a product that is kind of like a Firebase alternative. If people know what Firebase is, it's created by Google actually. But Firebase is a cloud-based database solution that you can use to host your projects, and you can use it for free for, I think, you can stretch that pretty far. But I did something recently as a, let's see, table editor. So now this is telling me that I'm no longer restore the project. Let's see. This is where you can store those tables. It'll kind of look like Excel. Let me just find where my tables went. Or maybe they don't have it anymore. Okay, I think I don't have the tables I created before, but yeah, this is the other tool that can be used.
Amazing. Cool. I think just given the interest of time, probably like one last question. This one goes to Steph. How did you come with the vision of Peak? Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. So do you wanna?
Yeah, I would say it didn't so much start out with a vision, like a grand vision of like what I think the future should look like. It was more like a problem that felt more grounded. And I think that was probably in reaction to the fact that my previous startup, I did start with this like grand vision of like what remittances could look like if you had crypto settlement rails, right? And then trying to find the first beachhead customer and pain point that's hair on fire enough for them to adopt was challenging. So
Yeah.
I kind of went with the approach of like, okay, what do I at least know is a problem because I can feel it, I can validate with myself,
Yeah.
and then see if other people feel it as well. And that's actually kind of how it evolved, right? So I try to keep it a lot more grounded this, second time around. Is that always the approach? I mean, I think you can start a company a million different ways, right? Like I think
Sure.
if Steve Jobs were asking people like, do you want a personal computer? Like he probably would never build Apple because nobody could imagine like what you would use a personal computer for, right? But he had a strong vision and then kind of took that vision and worked backwards for how to realize that, then to work forwards from an MVP. But I think that, you can go both ways when building a company.
Got it. Cool. I think we still have a lot of questions, but given the interest of time, I think let's pause here. I mean, this is actually probably one of the most engaging ones. The amount of attendees, the amount of questions, I absolutely love it. I think probably most likely it's because you, Sherry. I think the amount of inspiration you've given us and the stuff that you've gone through, especially as a non-technical person, I think you're like personally you're my inspiration to just on that road, learning to be more technical or understanding how to use AI to help me to actually building my own hopefully products at some stage as well. So there's a lot of inspirations I'm sure most of us we can take from you tonight. So thank you for joining the session. I'm pretty sure maybe in the near future we can have you back again, for your next version of your peak or whatever the next iteration of your product journey. So we're looking forward to talk to you soon again.
For sure. Thank you. Thanks for the time and nice to meet you all.
Likewise. Thank you guys. Yeah, appreciate it
All right.
for joining. Have a
All
good
right.
night. Bye,
Thank
guys.
you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Yeah.